Hi, everybody. Welcome back. It's another episode of Looking for Team with Jackzilla. And this one, it's a bit of a two-parter. And it has all to do with the Premier League. Now, Jack, last time on the show, we talked about a Premier League team, Liverpool Football Club. You then kind of watched and kind of played League of Legends during a match between.
It's European, just like League of Legends is European.
It was at 8 a.m, so it's.
You got too many of my homies together in one room. You got all my league to do, the people I play league with were all there.
The entire 5-stack was in the call.
Yeah.
While we were watching the game, did you pick up anything though from the Liverpool match against Tottenham?
They crushed, right? It feels like a million years ago now. It felt like it was not very close, and then there was a little bit of a squeeze where they played a little worse, and Mitch was freaking out because he said that the team was a bit of they were kind of chokers this season, or in this tournament. I don't know what the proper terminology is. So that created some tension. It honestly reminded me a little bit of like baseball, of like the feeling of watching it was like it's more than baseball, more exciting, I guess, less structured, but just I could imagine going to a soccer game and just kind of you sometimes are paying attention and you're sometimes not.
I think the thing about it that differentiates from baseball is like the constant tension, In baseball, it's very structured. Like, here is the time where, someone can hit the ball with the bat and put it into play. And then, there's a whole bunch of shit in between. The pitchers are, like, waiting to throw the pitch.
Maybe I'm bullshitting and I'm just comparing it to that because it was nice.
Yeah.
Maybe hockey is actually closer, and I've watched hockey, and it's like, if you're actually a hockey fan, your eyes are glued every second, even though it's a low-scoring game.
Yeah, it's definitely closer to hockey, I would say. But, it's like... It really is just, like, a lot of moments of tension and build-up for, like, 4 moments of just, like, pure release,
Yeah. A lot of edging.
Yeah, it's kind of edging the sport. And we'll get into some other similar terminology here as we talk about Arsenal Football Club. But let's talk about the Premier League in general here. What's happening with it, a little bit of how it works. We talked about it a little bit in the last episode. I gave you a rundown of, where certain spots in the table put you for things like the Champions League, for things like relegation, for winning the league, obviously, if you're at the top of it. So, here's the Premier League. These are the 20 teams that are in it currently. It's the top flight of English football. This is a pyramid that goes down really to your, like, recreational leagues almost in England. Like,
you could technically, through the structure of the system, take your rec team pro.
Yes. Yeah, that's correct. It would take you like 15, 18 promotions maybe, but you could get there.
What's the shortest time you could do it?
Once a year. You can get promoted once a year. So
they could go through all the promotions
within a couple decades, It's theoretically possible.
Okay.
And
so they would promote one league per year.
Yes, that's correct.
So you couldn't take your boys pro after a hot year.
No.
Okay.
Unfortunately, but you don't always have to start at the bottom, and I'm not exactly sure how that works. That's beyond me. That's dark magic. So the Premier League, like we talked about, it's a double round robin. So you're going to play all of the other 19 teams twice. So each team will have 38 matches per season. They do their standings with points. You get 3 points for a win, 1 point for a draw, and you get nothing for a loss. And whoever has the most points at the end of the season wins. And then, like we talked about, the top 4 teams qualify for the Champions League, which is the European competition. All the best teams in Europe play against each other in that round robin to knockout format. The 5th best team qualifies for the Europa League, which is basically the same thing, but at a slightly lower level. Still a very important competition. And then the bottom 3 teams in the league are relegated to a league that confusingly is called the Championship. As you go down these leagues, it's called the Premier League, the Championship, League One, and then League Two, and those are the 4 biggest like professional leagues. And the Premier League naming convention has just fucked this all up. It used to just be first through 4th division. Yeah. And now we have the Premier League, the Championship, and League One, which all sound like they should be the top flight.
Yeah.
But it's you'll get used to it as we talk about this a little bit more. So the last day of the Premier League is very cool. They play all of the matches at the same time, and so all of those implications for winning the league, for the Champions League, Europa League, for relegation, they're all unfolding at the same moment,
So which one? Well, I guess we'll get to it, but are there 1 or 2 of these? Like, what's the maximum that are relevant for the first place?
Yeah,
like usually 2 or 3.
So there's 2 matches here in particular that we're going to look at that are relevant for first place. But first, let's talk about the relegation zone, the spot where you don't want to be, and it's pretty much wrapped up right now. Sheffield United and Burnley are guaranteed going down. Luton Town theoretically could stay up, but as you can see here, this is goal difference, this minus 19, minus 31. So they not only have 3 points to make up, but 12 goals. So, if for instance, Nottingham Forest loses 7-0, and Luton Town wins 6-0, then they'll stay up. But it will take no less than that for them to survive this season in the Premier League.
Or they win 13-0, and the other team goes 0.
Yeah, that could happen too. And it's kind of unfortunate because I think there's a charm to Luton Town. They are one of those teams that I believe they were in the 4th tier less than a couple decades ago, like within the last 15 years, and they've gotten promoted to the Premier League now. Their stadium, it's basically a big house. And there are houses that are literally like meters away from the stadium if you look at it. It's fantastic, but they're in all likelihood going back down to the Championship for the next season. It was just funny seeing such a small club and such a small stadium be a part of the biggest league in the world.
Well, then they had their moment.
Yeah, and maybe they'll be back. One thing about being relegated is that you actually get paid money, because when you go up to the Premier League, the amount of money that you spend to stay in it is so exorbitant that when you go down and you lose that revenue, you can't maintain that level of spending anymore.
Yeah, so it's an insurance policy that pays out.
Yeah, basically. And so you'd think like those teams are going to be the most competitive, right? They just came from the Premier League, but they need that money. Otherwise, they're going to crumble under the weight of the financial pressure, basically.
Yeah.
So this is pretty much locked up. There aren't many things to look at here. The top of the table, the very top of the table, as you can see, is close. Otherwise, this is all wrapped up. The Champions League spots are going to go to Man City, Arsenal, Liverpool, and Aston Villa, and then Tottenham kind of blew it and are going to be in the Europa League. But, as you can see, Manchester City and Arsenal are 2 points away from each other. And 1 goal in terms of goal differential away from each other. And so this is very possible, for Arsenal to overtake Man City here. We'll talk about how that can happen. So these are the matches that we're looking at. Arsenal versus Everton and Man City versus West Ham. And because Arsenal has the better goal differential, what they need from this match is either a draw or a loss from Man City. And then they need to win, They must win.
Does West Ham have the sauce?
Well, you watched Ted Lasso, so you saw some of West Ham, and I think one of the things in that show is that they greatly oversell how good West Ham is.
West Ham is not a villain? Well, I thought that it was kind of, he made it better, like, because he's a billionaire and he bought it.
Yeah, I guess, but, I mean, a billionaire owns West Ham anyway.
Yeah. They
So
all are
like,
owned by billionaires. This is redundant. True.
yeah. So they the last time they played Man City, they lost 3-1. That was at home. This one's in Manchester. But crazier things have happened on the last day of the season for sure. So this
Does
is
West Ham
still
have hate in their hearts? Could they muster up a hate for
that's
Man
the
City?
thing is that they're not in either one of these spots, at the bottom or the top of the table. So like really they're just playing for pride, playing to be the spoilers.
That sometimes is very powerful.
I
There's like a very huge history in like a league of teams that have already been eliminated getting huge upsets.
Yeah, I do think teams revel in that sometimes, and they're proud lads, I'm sure. you know, so yeah, definitely some intrigue there. Arsenal. We'll talk about these teams individually. First, let's talk about Manchester City. This is tough for me, Jack. I have to say, because this is a club that I hate, and this is a club that I think most people hate. But I feel like I have an obligation to almost advocate for them to you. You know? Like,
You don't have to. They're a church
is it
team. I
well,
don't like church.
is it not my job to tell you the reasons why you might want to support a team and let you come to your own conclusions rather
Are you
than
you're a public defender? You have to. It's like a
yeah,
bridge of spies. You have to give them their fair shake in court
that's
to win the Cold War.
that's kind of what I'm thinking here.
Okay.
And I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try to do that. So yeah, you don't like church, but they were founded by members of St. Mark's Church of England in West Gorton in Manchester, and they were basically like, we gotta keep these kids off the street. They're drinking, they're vandalizing, they're I don't know punching people in the chest or whatever, and so we gotta distract them from all of that.
So their solution to hooliganism was to give them hooliganism crack.
Well, this is way before like big supporters clubs, that are
Okay.
that are going out in their Stone Island sweaters on the
They're
town
just
and
trying
getting
to play
pissed
some
drunk.
games.
Yeah, they're just trying to. It's a rec team. That's what it
Yeah.
is. That's what a lot of these clubs came from. I think that the stories of how these clubs got founded, compared to where they are now, is often pretty amusing. Because they're very humble beginnings. Except Liverpool, which was a cash grab from the beginning, as we know. So they changed their name to Manchester City Football Club in 1894, and that's the year that they have on the badge here. That's what they consider to be their founding year. So they've been around, just like all these clubs, for a real long time. So they're going to have some history. And we should talk about it. They are kind of like the Clippers of the Premier League, I think.
Great.
So they share the city, obviously, with Manchester United, who are a huge historical club, obviously. They had some limited success, although it's weird. So they won the league in 1937 and then got relegated the next season. And then they won the league in 1968, having been promoted from the second tier only 2 seasons earlier. So these are not dynasties that we're talking about. This is a roller coaster ride of these flash-in-the-pan moments of celebration for City fans. And they all happened way back in yonder days, There's nothing very recent for them to cling on to for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then in
People who enjoyed these wins are now barely able to recall, or just super old and
Yeah.
sharp, that kind of stuff.
And then if we grew up being City fans, we would have seen them be relegated in 1999 to the 3rd tier. That's bad. But I do have to give these fans credit, because I do think that City fans have gotten a bit of a bad rap because of the international prestige that they have, earned with what's coming up after this. But as you can see here, here's a map of Greater Manchester. The blue dots are Manchester City supporters. The red dots are United supporters. So it's like they have a strong base within the city, Like,
It's
this
unintelligible. Why is this pattern the way it is?
Yeah, I don't know. It was a pretty informal poll where they just asked a bunch of people in these various areas. But as you can see, the southeast side of Manchester, it's like their own little town that supports City, And to these fans' credit, they made it a point to support their club through the tough time of being in the third tier, and attendance actually went up after that relegation. So,
like, we're gonna win again.
Yeah, so they get to see some winning football, and they did. They got promoted the next season, and we're quickly back up in the Premier League. So, the fans, they've got heart. I have nothing but respect for somebody who was, born in Manchester and is a City fan. But here's their, here's their Steve Ballmer, and it comes in the form of Sheikh Mansour bin Zayed Al Nahyan. He is the Vice President and Deputy Prime Minister of the United Arab Emirates. So what this means, basically, is that the club of Manchester City is functionally owned by the government of the UAE. Not great. He purchased it for $200 million in 2008 and has spent a lot more money than that on buying players. 1.36 billion net transfer spend. So that's the money that they've spent minus the money that they've gotten. He does occasionally. Yeah, no, he doesn't live there. Okay. But, he's been seen at games.
How do the fans feel about that?
So, I've seen a couple of perspectives. I mean, the broader football community, I think, hates it, right? They hate that, oil money has come in and, taken this club that, as we saw, has relatively little history and superpowered them.
He gave him the Monstar juice.
Yeah, he basically made the Monstars with oil money. But I think that Manchester City fans are like, any other club would be okay with this happening to them,
Yeah.
They're just kind of grateful that they've been along for the ride, in a way.
They shouldn't be alive.
Yeah, exactly.
So it might as well be a zombie.
People that had to go to those matches in the third tier, of course they're going to celebrate when their team does well. They've been through it. Let's talk about one of those moments that kind of made it all worth it for them. So, big final day in 2012. And as you can see here, it's tied at the top of the table between United and City. And United won the league the 4 out of the past 5 years. City cannot escape from the shadow, even with all the money that's being pumped in for the first few years here. And they did build a huge money sink squad in that time, but it just hadn't paid off yet. City and United, they're tied here at the top of the table. And City has the goal differential, so they just need to match United's result. And in the 92nd minute, which, as I'm sure you'll know, is very late in the match, it's not looking good. United are up 1-0 away at Sunderland. City are down 2-1 to QPR, who, by the way, are in a relegation battle themselves here. Their survival in the league is not guaranteed on this day. And the ref awards 5 minutes of stoppage time, which at the time is a lot of time. Usually you're seeing around 2-3 minutes, but there was a red card in this match. Joey Barton, who is a huge asshole and a bigot, got a red card and kicked a Manchester City player on the way off of the pitch. And so that took up a lot of time. So that gives City a bit of a lifeline here. And they need 2 goals if they want to win the league here. And they get the first one. Edin Dzeko heads in a corner kick in the 93rd minute. And then let's take a look at this.
This guy. Oh god, this is like having the okay. I was like having the vertical video next to the other one. Yeah. Oh. Damn.
That was like getting his balls crushed scream.
Yep. It's a legendary commentary moment from Martin Tyler. If you type Aguero in all caps on the internet, people will immediately know that you're referring to that. And then the news comes in Sunderland to the Manchester United players that they've actually not won the league. And here's the dog pile, and I want us to look. They'll do a crowd shot here. It's like, how can you not feel happy for these people? It's the first league title that they've won since 1968. And, you know, even if it came from, you know, questionable methods.
If you're going to make a deal with the devil, you might as well get your due.
Yeah, what an exciting moment. Because, to be fair, there are plenty of clubs in the world who have resorted to stuff like this and maybe not gotten that moment, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's a huge moment in City history, maybe like the most exciting moment in Premier League history. It's what people have in the back of their minds as they go into final days like this all the time. That possibility that something crazy like that might happen is what is giving Arsenal fans hope. You know, for this final day. All right then. Since then, they've been great. They've won league titles in 2014, 18, 19, 21, 22, and 23. They hired Pep Guardiola in 2016, who was very successful as the manager of Barcelona and Bayern Munich. Maybe the best manager in the world, some people would say. And they've continued to dump lots and lots of money into building their squad. Thank you, Sheikh Mansour. Speaking of which, they're in a little bit of hot water right now. So there's no salary cap per se in the Premier League or in European football in general, but there are what are called financial fair play regulations. And I'm not an expert on this, but as I understand it, basically what it means is that there's a salary cap that is scaled to the revenue of your club. And you can't overspend what you bring in by too much more, right? You can't just have money dumped into the club to be spent on players. Yeah, it's kind of a progressive tax, which is in one way weird because it cements the status quo of big clubs, right? Like the more revenue you bring in, the more money you get to spend on players. And I know that you're kind of anti-salary tax, so I'm curious what you think about an arrangement like that here. Because what City have done here is circumvented that requirement by doing things like misrepresenting investor money as sponsor money. Like they use their relationship with the Emirati government and funneled money through like Etihad Airways to, bring investor money into the club, basically. They've used offshore accounts to hide how much they're paying their manager. And they've done a whole bunch of obstruction with this investigation as well. As you can see, 35 of the 115 charges are failure to cooperate with Premier League investigations. And so, they're in a bit of hot water. But the thing is that this is taking fucking forever. Yeah. Like, these charges came out a couple of years ago. And in the meantime, Everton, who were charged with far less, were docked 10 points in the table, which is a huge penalty.
So Man City is just paying off the judges.
Well, yeah, the idea is either they're going to be like relegated, which is what they probably deserve compared to what Everton did, or it's going to be decided that they're too financially important to the league to to relegate them.
Too big to fail.
Yeah, they're too big to fail. But, I mean, Italian football, they cook it up a little bit differently, but Juventus, who are historically the biggest club in Italy, were relegated in 2006 for similar crimes. So, it's not entirely unprecedented that they could just say, hey, fuck off back down to League One, you know? So we'll see what happens with that. But it's kind of this dark cloud that's hanging over this otherwise very successful time in Manchester City history. And then that's not even to speak of the stuff that they're allowed to do. And one big point of contention is multi-club ownership. Sheikh Mansour owns all of these clubs throughout the world. And what this means is that he can pull, talent from Bolivia, from Brazil, from Uruguay, from Asia, and funnel them to these sort of lower league European clubs. He owns Troy. He owns this Belgium club, Lomo, Girona, and Palermo in Italy. And basically kind of like store these players there until they're ready to play for Manchester City and not have to pay any money to transfer them between clubs. You know? That money's just going right back into his pocket.
Why does he want Manchester City to succeed above all these others? Are there none of these that are as prestigious?
I mean, they're the cash cow, right? Like, they're already the biggest brand. And so any success that they have is going to, bolster this even more. The only other, like, top-tier European club is Girona. And they're nowhere near as big of a club as City. Like, the existing infrastructure at City makes it much, much easier for them to compete. They've already been winning, than it does for this team, which has to contend with, like, Barcelona and Real Madrid in Spain. Like, you would have to do so much work to make them compete. And this is particularly a problem with Troy, who are struggling right now in the French league. They're about to get relegated from the second division because Manchester City keeps moving all of their good players to different places. For their own, benefit.
They're a feeder team, and so they can't have their own identity.
So if you're a fan of one of these clubs, on one hand, you're going to get to see a lot of talented players come, but you're also going to see them go,
Yeah.
So it's a bit of a conflicting thing. And the only restriction on this is that these teams can't play in the same competition. Like, if Girona makes it to the Champions League, they have to sit it out because Manchester City is going to be in there. But otherwise, this is completely allowed. So, yeah, people don't like this.
Are there any other clubs that have similar kind of tendrils?
Yeah, many. There are several clubs that do this. This is the biggest example of it, but it definitely happens in other places.
It's kind of just like weird to me. I get that like all this is from a club that's not in London. Like, they are able to generate enough revenue through Manchester to justify. I mean, do these teams just have crazy worldwide fan bases as a result? Is he like getting all the UAE Premier League fans into Manchester City?
Yeah, one criticism about Manchester City now is that ever since the the takeover, their fan base is primarily like not in Manchester, and so those fans don't have the same sort of connection with the team. I will say, I think there was a time around when they won that first Premier League that people saw it as a little bit subversive to support the team because they weren't part of that entrenched sort of historical group of good clubs. But now it's kind of faded away because when you start supporting them now, you're supporting a team that's won 3 straight Premier Leagues, Like, you're at a 5 on the scale of I want to support a team that wins,
Yep. It sounds like when it comes to local support, a lot of them might be walking alone.
Yeah. I mean, it is. We'll talk about their stadium and how that doesn't necessarily help.
Have we talked about yet the fact that I believe I've been to more Premier League stadiums than you?
Yeah, I've been to 0, and you've been to 1, right?
Woo!
Yeah. We're going to talk about that stadium as well.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah. City, for all their league success, they've kind of struggled to get the big prize, the Champions League. They keep losing. They made it to one final in 2021, but these are weird results. They're losing to other English teams that they're beating in the league here, like Liverpool and Tottenham and Chelsea. Lyon and Monaco are like, they're not the best clubs in France, like they're losing to those teams when they're otherwise at the top of the world, probably have the best squad in the world. But they found their missing piece, and it's this guy, Erling Haaland, this giant Norwegian man. He scored 52 goals in 53 appearances last season, which is the most that anyone's ever done for a Premier League team. And he got second in Ballon d'Or voting. Do you know what the Ballon d'Or is?
No, it sounds like MVP, but in French.
It's the award for the best player in the world. And he lost.
In the world.
Yeah, and he lost to Lionel Messi. And a lot of people disagree with that because Messi just kind of won the World Cup, and that's it. And he's past his prime. And Erling Haaland had like a historical season. but yeah, he's very good, and he propelled them.
And he's young.
Yeah,
oh my
he's
God,
very
this
young.
guy's the weirdest face I've ever seen.
Yeah, right. He's 23, right?
Can you go to Google without screwing it up? The first result when I looked it up, the first picture is just horrible. They're doing him dirty. Maybe he has a mouth guard in. This is a Viking man.
Oh yeah, I see. That exhale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's so wide.
Yeah, he's crazy. He's a force, and he propels them to some Champions League success, culminating in yeah, this is my team that they played against in the Champions League final. This is Inter, and
Inter?
Yeah,
Okay.
Inter Milan.
Is that short for something?
It's short for Internazionale, international.
Okay.
They play from they're from Milan in Italy. So a lot of people think, this is just anecdotal, a lot of people think that Manchester City got outplayed in this game. And here's a particularly frustrating moment where, as you can see, the ball is coming towards the head of our hometown boy Federico Di Marco here. And Manchester City's goalkeeper is on his ass in the goal. So Di Marco heads the ball towards goal, and who is in the way but his own teammate Romelu Lukaku?
Yeah. Oh.
And this is like in the 90th minute of the game. And yeah,
How do you get out of the way?
Yeah, that's a great question, Jack. And so this is painful for me because it's like my club has a transfer budget, maybe like a fifth of what Manchester City's does, you know? And they have all these, like, pending financial charges against them. Like, it feels Mickey Mouse that they've done this. But, yeah, they do end up winning the Champions League 1-0 in this match. And, yeah, that stings for me. And that certainly contributes to my distaste for them at the moment. But after that, we have this season. So they're back to losing in the Champions League. They lost in the quarterfinals against Real Madrid again. They've had a pretty good campaign in the league. 27 wins, 7 draws, and 3 losses. And as I mentioned before, if they beat West Ham, they win the title. The implication here is that nobody has ever won the league 4 times in a row in the 100-plus year history of the Premier League in the First Division. Already three-peated. They're going for the 4th year. Unprecedented.
Damn. This is what the Bulls could have done.
Yes. If Michael Jordan didn't play goddamned baseball. And we're actually going to talk about that in the next episode extensively. Yeah. So, yeah, they're chasing history here. And who are challenging them? Arsenal Football Club. You've been to their stadium.
That's right.
Did you enjoy it?
United Emirates Stadium, I believe it's called.
It is called the Emirates Stadium.
Okay, not United Emirates, just Emirates.
Yeah, after Emirates Airlines.
Not Mr. Manager, just manager.
Yeah, there you go. Arsenal. I found this so amusing. This is what I'm talking about, these stories. So, these guys, they work at a munitions factory. They make weapons in 1886. 15 of them pooled together, 6 pence each, and David Danskin throws in an extra 3 shillings on top, and that's all it takes to form Arsenal Football Club in 1886.
Beast.
So they're initially called Dial Square Football Club. They changed it to Arsenal, which is a pretty cool name, you know, given that they make guns and stuff. So it's like it's
They're
basically
open with their history of aiding and abetting, you know, atrocities.
The military-industrial complex in its early days here.
That would be a great name for a team, military-industrial complex.
That's basically what they are. So current ownership of Arsenal. Surprisingly, given the name of their stadium, they're owned by an American, and his name is Stan Kroenke. And
MIC, you know?
Yeah, and he is perhaps best known for moving the St. Louis Rams to Los Angeles in a very Donald Sterling-esque move, without really getting permission from the NFL. He just kind of ups and moves them out there.
Oh my God! And you know how he got his money? I'm looking. Are we going to talk about it?
Is it? What? He's a real estate guy, right?
No, he married Ann Walton, a
Oh.
Walmart heiress.
I see. Yeah, I didn't know that. So that's great for him.
He's a gold digger that turned it into sports.
Yeah. So I should mention, I didn't put this in here. Both him and Manchester City tried to do the Super League thing. Remember the franchise Champions League that we talked about?
Yeah.
So
he said, let's make it American.
yeah, not great. Let's talk about the fans. Jack, they're called the Gooners. So unfortunate. So unfortunate. Oh, they're proud. The harder the road, the tougher the Gooners, Jack, as you can see. So, yeah, there are a lot of things about... First of all, they're the largest fan base of all of the London clubs. They hate Tottenham. That's their main rival. And Tottenham hates them so much. In fact, I saw this TikTok yesterday where it's a man-on-the-street style interview. Tottenham are playing Manchester City last week. And if Tottenham beat them, it greatly increases Arsenal's chance of winning the title. And the question this guy had for Tottenham fans was, would you rather the team win so that Arsenal has an easier time of winning the league? Or would you rather them throw to Manchester City to fuck over Arsenal? And a majority of them said that they would rather Tottenham lose.
Because Tottenham doesn't have a chance either way, right?
Well, Tottenham is still in contention to make the Champions League at this point. It's an outside shot, but it's still mathematically possible for them. And
like,
a majority...
Bring them down with us.
A majority of those fans hated Arsenal enough that they said that they would rather Tottenham lose. And they do. So, yeah.
Management heard them.
Yes. Hear you loud and clear. So, yeah, those two, that's the big rivalry in London. Arsenal fans, I don't have a lot of data to back this up, except for that they have the most non-white support out of any of the clubs in England. So they're a diverse fan base. People say that Arsenal is kind of the club that Americans latch onto for some reason. I don't know why, but Arsenal, if I had to pick a Premier League club to support, I would probably pick Arsenal. And if I had to give my reasons, I would say that I played with them in FIFA and I like them. But you don't really have that sort of connection to any players or like any sort of other soccer media. So I don't really have like
I have that. I've been there.
You have been there, and that's really it.
It's a huge difference.
I guess it's kind of cool to like a London club. It might be most justifiable to like a London club because it's the most like international city. So
yeah, that's what I was thinking.
That's part of why I picked Inter, is because their name is literally international. They were founded because AC Milan wouldn't allow non-Italian players to play in their team, and so I kind of thought I want to support an Italian club, and this is the International Italian Club. So
yeah,
I found that to be a good reason. So I don't know. Maybe Arsenal has a similar effect here because they're the biggest London club. Their fans, they're often angry, I have to say. You'll find a lot of videos of people outside the stadium complaining about ownership, complaining about the manager, complaining about players. So these are fans that they love to complain, and I think there's a bit of there's something to appreciate about that, you know. So these are the Gooners, Jack. Would you like to goon?
I don't know what their vibe is. You've given me complaining and Gooners and diversity. So like we're at -1.
They certainly don't have the strong characteristics of Liverpool. You know, like these are just like they're people. It's an international fan base and people from London who like the biggest club in London, and that's why they're there, kind of. Yeah. So they're pretty good, right?
The Yankees, but they don't win.
Kind of. Yeah. They have 13 league titles, though, which is the third most behind Liverpool and Man United. 14 FA Cups. They own the FA Cup. That's the most of any team. They haven't won the Champions League. They made it to the final once. They didn't win it. And one time they won the Premier League without losing a game in 2004. It's the only time that's been done. That was a team that had Thierry Henry. I don't know if you remember Thierry Henry. I don't know. He's very good. He was in Ted Lasso a couple times also as a pundit.
In which season? If it was season 3.
I think all of them. I think he shows up in pretty much all of them as a pundit.
Okay.
Yeah, but they haven't won the Premier League in 20 years. Their current team, they've got a few key people I want to talk about. Bukayo Saka, he is an Arsenal Academy product. He's 23. He perhaps his best known moment is that he was playing for England in the European Championships and missed a key penalty in the shootout that gave Italy the win. And so now he's kind of on his redemption arc, and since then he's become a really good player for Arsenal. Maybe their most important player. Declan Rice. Declan Rice is their new signing this year. They stole him away from Manchester City, which is kind of nice, kind of rad. He's a midfielder. And then Martin Odegaard, he was kind of first of all, he's national team teammates with Holland. They're both Norwegian. He was kind of a prodigy. I remember him being talked about very highly when he was like 15 years old. He was playing for Real Madrid, and it just never worked out for him. And he's been kind of a reclamation project at Arsenal. And I would say that that's one thing about this team that just the team itself you'll appreciate maybe, is that all of these guys, they're 25 years old or younger, and Arsenal has been very good at developing these sorts of players into, a title contending squad. And a large part of that is probably due to their manager, Mikel Arteta, who, as you can see here, he looks pretty young. And that's because, I remember him playing for Arsenal within the last decade. So he, pretty much went straight from playing for Arsenal to being their manager in a short period of time. And they've done well.
Internal candidates.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that this is a very exciting young squad, and it would be kind of cool to watch this team beat the juggernaut, so to speak, in Manchester City, who paid a lot of money for their players, who were, already big-name players from other clubs. This season, so they were clear leaders in the league for quite a long time, and they kind of blew it. They lost at home 2-0 against Aston Villa, a very disappointing result for them. They also fumbled the bag last year. They led for most of the season last year, and City swooped in behind them and won the league. They've won their last 5 league matches since that loss against Aston Villa, so they're coming in hot here. But, as we mentioned, they need help. They need Everton to either draw or lose against City. So, I would say it's a bit of a long shot, but as we know, crazy things can happen. So let's talk about the supporters clubs for these two teams. They actually meet at the same bar in San Francisco, Maggie McGarry's, which is kind of... That's what I'm wondering, because these matches are going to be happening at the same time tomorrow.
I feel like it's too hypothetical, and like the kind of people that would be... Like, there might be some international fans, like people from these areas that grew up with the fervent hatred, but they come to America and it's like... They're working in tech, and it's like, am I still going to beat somebody up over this?
They lose their... It's also 8 a.m. The game's at 8 a.m. So it's like, am I going to wake my ass up to go brawl at Maggie McGarry's in San Francisco? Probably not. But if you wanted, you could just sample these two clubs, maybe in one sitting there when they're playing on the same day.
Yeah, I could see who I like to hang out with more.
Yeah, exactly. I will say
Bay Area Gooners.
Yeah. It's so unfortunate. You can see since 2006, right? So they definitely had it first. But I will say, I think the Arsenal Supporters Club is probably the biggest of any in the area. Yeah. I haven't seen the Manchester United Club. It might be bigger, but they're bigger than Liverpool and City. Yeah, for sure. And I don't know, some of the City pictures, they have like 5 people in them. So, Arsenal might be the play. Arsenal might be the play here if this is important to you.
You want to go and enjoy a game and be one with the people around you.
Yeah, exactly. So, let's talk about land use profiles. Here's the Etihad Stadium. It's the home of Manchester City. I would say it's not looking great compared to maybe some other clubs. It's not like in the downtown area of Manchester or anything. It's kind of in a suburb. One thing about this stadium is that it was initially built as an athletic stadium, and then converted to be a football stadium. But as you can see here, it's kind of got this weird shape. It's often called the Empty Had Stadium, because City fans maybe have gotten a little bit complacent and aren't filling this place up like they used to.
Because they're winning too much?
Yeah. I saw one video where this guy's like, when you go to a cup final in England, like the FA Cup final, it's at Wembley Stadium, and it's usually like a really big day for clubs. And he's like, my son's been 13 times, and he's bored of it now. So, yeah. So, and I don't think the stadium helps because of that athletics design.
Yeah.
The stands are not very close to the pitch. And so the atmosphere here is maybe a little bit dulled from other clubs.
A little lifeless.
Yeah. Little bit tame.
Big parking lot,
Yeah.
It is crazy how much of a correlation there is between that kind of stuff and like the energy within a stadium. It's crazy to me over and over that builders of stadiums make this mistake. And obviously, like, this is still closer to housing and probably transit than most American.
Yeah, I mean, it's right across the road here to the south, at least.
But, like, still, relative to other stadiums that we've seen, it's like it feels self-defeating.
Yeah.
So that they can make a big building.
Yeah. And this is relatively new. I think it was built in the mid-2000s, like 2004, 2005, or at least renovated to be used for football at that time. So, I don't know. They're probably going to be here for a while. I don't like the look of this place. I don't know why.
It does look like an asset from, like, cities' skylines. Like, it looks like a 3D model that's just been copy-pasted in.
Yeah. So, it's cringe, like the rest of the club. The Emirates Stadium. Looking a little bit better here, I would say. So their old club was up here to the north west, and that's since been repurposed for housing. Highbury Stadium was the name of that. And they moved to this area, which was largely just an industrial area. There was a lot of like opposition from the people in this area, largely because there were going to be a lot of people coming to this area on match days who didn't live there, So it was a bit of NIMBYism. They don't really, and this is a pretty wealthy area of London, I would say, in North London. I don't want to ascribe that to the whole fan base. There are definitely lots of working class people who support Arsenal.
Yeah, I mean, it's like north side of Chicago, right? This is a problem Wrigley Field has, and Wrigleyville especially has become incredibly desirable since they've become a team that doesn't suck.
Yeah. A bit of NIMBYism here, maybe, I would say, from these people in terms of their opposition to the stadium. But ultimately, it did go through. And it really is kind of like in the heart of London almost, I would say. It's definitely to the north of, like, all the main shit, the Thames and Big Ben and whatever, the fucking Ferris wheel.
Yeah, but I had to take, like, a pretty, like, decent size, like, Uber, or I think I went there by subway once, but I didn't understand how to use the subway very well. And all of my coworkers were like, we're not taking public transit.
Cringe.
I didn't have the dog in me at that point early on because I went there when I was like 2 months into my new job. And so I barely knew what I was doing.
You got to conform.
Yeah.
But I would say it's an urban stadium. It's not like they threw it out there somewhere. It's in London proper for sure. I don't know. I like it more than the last one. It's definitely designed to be a football stadium. You can tell that, but
I was in like a hall that was like for businesses to host. I don't know if it was for, but like you could host like your business doing a little conference thing.
Yeah.
And ours was like team building stuff, and so they did their stuff with us, their training with us, and then they'd go on the field and do trust falls with each other, and it was that kind of bullshit,
Sick.
So like we've got to be like the team.
Like the Gunners. and we're the Gooners to their,
If
to the
I had
Arsenal
known
Football
at the
Club.
time that this team's fans were called Gooners, they might have even been talking about it, and I just like didn't know. They
Yeah.
might have like made gooning jokes, and I was just. But boy, oh boy, that would have been useful.
Oh yeah, so that's them. That's those are our clubs here. I didn't put our last slide, but I want to get your vibe check here on these two teams. How do you feel about Manchester City, and how do we feel about Arsenal?
Uninspired.
Yeah.
They're winning teams that seem to win a lot. I don't see what the big appeal is. A lot of that they're popular. Their popularity itself is, but I don't understand why they're popular. Besides that, they're the London team, right?
Yeah.
It very much feels like a Lakers pitch or a Yankees pitch.
Yeah.
And then for Man City, it's just they win a lot. If you want to see a winning team,
And they got money.
Yeah, I kind of am curious. I guess based on the story you told me, I would rather that Arsenal win, but I don't feel like this is some heroic triumph. They're just stopping the four-peat with another team that, while scrappier, is still very wealthy and is still funded a lot by oil money. So.
Yeah, that's valid. Now, that being said, do you still have interest in... So the last day, all those matches, they're happening tomorrow at 8 a.m. Is it enough for you to get out of bed to watch that?
Yeah, I'll get up. I'm used to getting up early for things I barely want to be doing.
Okay.
And so getting up for something that I kind of want to be doing is an improvement.
Okay, great. So we'll plan on that then. And we'll come back and we'll report our results.
Yeah, and then it's get on my level. Then there's Melee.
Yeah.
I think it starts at 9 a.m. They said we don't care about West Coast viewership.
Holy shit.
For top 32.
That's crazy.
Yeah, the tournament will be done by 2 p.m. West time, I think. I love that.
Yeah, well, it'll be a nice day. And I don't know, I hope Arsenal win. Again, I still don't really know why I like Arsenal. Maybe I'll discover it when we watch this match tomorrow. But
maybe you're just a gooner.
Maybe I'm just
Deep
a gooner
down.
at heart, Maybe that's really what it is.
I can't believe that you think more about Arsenal than We'll Never Walk Alone.
It's a FIFA thing, almost entirely, I think.
It's like your main.
Yeah, I was so FIFA pilled back in like 2010, 2011 that I just kind of did whatever felt good there.
Yeah,
it's kind of like gooning that way.
What would be their Melee character equivalent in FIFA? What's the feel of playing Arsenal?
Oh, for some reason they strike me as like Marth. I don't know. Like clean cut, classy, smooth,
You got your Crimson Blurs, our fans.
Yeah. Something like
just
that.
Really really big fans of this guy.
Yeah. Marth's also a gooner and we know this.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't really know. We're discovering things here together. And we'll continue to do that on the next episode of Looking for Team with Jackzilla, which is coming sooner than you think. All right. Goodbye, everyone.